as you can probably tell, we have another What Sold video for you guys today, and we're going to finish up the month of May. So it's a little over a week, so we have quite a few items to share with you, so let's just get started right away. The first one is this 1928 Jewelry Company necklace. This I think I talked about. I don't know that I specifically shared what it was in a haul video. Just that it was one of the yard sales that I went to on my thrifting therapy day and ended up going back again in the afternoon. And at that point, I found this necklace. Now, at the time, I did not realize how good this necklace was going to be. It's certain styles, obviously not all 1928 Jewelry Company jewelry is going to do this well. But this one had what's called, it's supposed to look like camphor glass. But it's just a frosted glass in here. But it has a very specific, Art Deco kind of look. It's a repro type company. But anyway, I couldn't find the exact one when I was comping it. But I took into consideration the fact that it had the filigree, it had a rhinestone, it had these extra beads on the chain. Different things like that were just a little bit more than the ones that I had seen sold for actually a really good price. And so I ended up pricing it at $79.99, and that's what it sold for. So I was super excited to get $80 for this necklace that I found at the yard sale, at the end of a yard sale, for $1. So something definitely to keep an eye out for. Like I said, not all the styles are going to end up this good, but might be worth doing a little bit of research. Anyway, as you could see, it was marked 1928 right there on the chain. So let's go over to the next one. It was a vintage necktie. This one was called a cutter cravat. Let's see. Let me get the picture better. A color-cade print by Cutter Cravat. Anyway, it's signed by the artist too, as well. And that one actually sold for $33.63, but very cool looking with the rainbow trout and all of that. Next one up, we have a Vineyard Vines belt, $26.99 is what that sold for. Just kind of a classic preppy kind of look. And this was, again, something at a yard sale, one of those yard sales where everything was $1. And I had just picked up a bunch of vintage. I had picked up some sterling flatware. But this was just one of those fun little things that I picked up at that sale that was in its original box. It was probably originally just a 5 and dime store kind of thing, but the orange color was really cool. It's a perpetual calendar, made in Hong Kong, so vintage, but just kind of had that really cool look to it. We ended up just taking an $18 offer on that and moving it pretty quickly after it was listed. This vintage JCPenney, well, it was just called Pennies at the time, Hawaiian style shirt, Aloha shirt. I think it was polyester if I remember correctly. Very classic 70s, but $35 is what that ended up selling for. It actually did take quite a few months to sell, and I think we picked this up out of town. Mr. Pish Posh found it. Now, this was the end of May, was this crazy month for Johnny Was for me. So if you guys don't know this brand, it's one to keep an eye out for. If you're around any resellers, you've probably heard of it already. But here's one of the tags. I'll show you some of the tags. Now this particular shirt was white on white. It had the embroidery. It was on the floor at the thrift store. So I was looking at the racks of clothes that they were going to be putting out, and it had fallen off a hanger, and it was in this heap on the floor. And so I picked it up, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Johnny Was. I was like, no way. And I'm like, maybe it got missed because it didn't have the big colorful embroidery or anything. But in any case, that one, because it was not the colorful embroidery, it sold for $40. The ones with colorful embroidery can sell for a lot higher, but it was also a size extra large, which helped as well. More about Johnny Was in a minute. Same thrift store. I don't know that it was the same day, but I found these new with tags pair of shorts, Bermuda kind of length shorts by Cool. I paid, I want to say $10 to $15 for these. This particular thrift store ends up, they pretty much have their clothing half off almost like every day of the week in connection with other types of sales. But at the very least, their clothing is usually always on half off. So they price their clothing a little bit higher. And then this was new with tags, and it's a brand they kind of know about in that store. And so I think they had it priced, they're short, so they had them priced it was either $20 or $30, but I looked them up and I was like, you know what, because not all Cool is going to do great, but these were new with tags, and I double checked the style when I was in the store, and I thought I could do pretty good. So those sold for $59 is what they sold for. Now back to Johnny Was. So a couple days later, after I found that other shirt, I went back to that thrift store, and this is like hanging, no joke, like on the end cap of like all the women's shirts, and it's just like right there in front of everybody, and I'm like, did they just put it out? Like, what in the world just happened? And so here, I'll show you this tag as well. It says Johnny Was, but then it also says 3J Workshop, so that's another kind of sub brand for Johnny Was, but at least this one does say Johnny Was as well. But this is what I was talking about, that colorful embroidery. Anywho, it was so interesting. So, you know, and they're like this, it's that same thrift store with the Cool and the one I was just talking about. And I just thought, oh, and the other Johnny Was, and they weren't priced high. Like these were like $6, and like I said, clothing was half off. So one was like $8, one was $6. So I got them for like $3 and $4. And so I just thought it was like kind of crazy. And so I'm like, you know what? It's the same size. I bet it's the same person donated them. So like I like looked through all the clothing, you know, all the shirts and tops, and I was just like looking for any more that had gotten donated at that time. So couldn't find anything. And this shirt actually did sell for that full asking price of $60. More about Johnny Was in a minute. It was a crazy end of May. We actually did pretty good. Now here's a brand, Izod, that I don't normally pick up. I think we picked this one up. I don't think it was the bins. It might have been someplace else in our travels. But just kind of very colorful and very geometric and everything for a golf visor. And it did. It sold for our full asking price of $24.99. I don't think I would pick up every single Izod visor, but that one worked out. Cutco, this is a spatula, sold for $24.99. More about Cutco's in a moment as well. Then another necktie I just wanted to share was this Hawaiian bark cloth necktie. I had sold something by this brand earlier. It was a bright blue tie. So I would pick these up if I saw them. It's not huge money. This one was $20.99. The other one was probably between $15 and $20. But it's just, I think it's on either side, and I think it says Kole Kole, if I'm saying that correctly. And it's the bark cloth material, so vintage Hawaiian. Gold collection, let's see, this one, I think this particular sale ended up getting canceled. So I think it had sold for like 30, or maybe it was the full 40. It was 40. And as soon as, like, we shipped it, and like a day later, the buyer had asked me, like, oh, I didn't order this. Can you cancel it? Like, that was a mistake. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I've already shipped it. You know, you're going to have to open a return. Or I don't even think I said that. I said, well, I've already shipped it. And so I knew I'd be getting a return back. So sure enough, it came back. And I think it recently sold again. But that's just happens sometimes in the reselling business. Okay, so this jewelry box sold for $103.99. Not jewelry box. I don't know what it originally was for. Could have been like decks of cards. It could have been cigarettes. It could have been whatever. It's got a pipe on it, so maybe that has something to do with it. The artist is Felice Galbiati. I don't know how to say that. So this, if you look at the decoration on it, it's very reminiscent if you're familiar with Fornasetti. And I kind of thought that's what it was when I first saw it. This came from that awesome ongoing estate sale thing that was our little honey hole for a while. And I think I paid maybe like $8 for this box. But very, very Fornasetti looking, and I thought that's what it was. So the name is right in there. It is made in Italy, and I was trying to research it again recently, and I can't find what I had originally read. It might have been in an item description or something like that, that Felice Galbati studied like either or worked in the same workshop as Fornasetti or worked under as a student. Anyway, you can see the influence, and not quite as popular or well known as Fornasetti. Fornasetti stuff usually sells pretty good and for high prices. This took a while, but I got my right buyer eventually, and it sold for $104, like I said. So here are those forks that I showed you on a video when we were out of town in our Airbnb. And I even, as you can see, took the pictures at my Airbnb. I took them on the windowsill. I was trying to find a good place where that pine cone pattern would show up. So I had found 4 dinner forks at the Goodwill down in Missoula in a baggie. And actually Mr. Pishposh, I think, spotted them first, showed me, and I was like, yeah, for sure, let's get them. So we sold the 2 for $22.99 each. I do offer a discount if you buy more than one, like a 10%. So it was in the $40 range or so. And not too bad. And as you can see, I'm out of stock now. So just recently, the other 2 sold as well. So not too bad for 4 forks, somewhere in the $80 range total. And then same trip, I told you about finding these wonderful mugs. Kind of like a bucket list find. This Libby Celestial Cobalt Blue glass mug sold for, let me double check the price on here, $49.49. That's the price. There was just the 10% off, I guess, that it's getting. So $49.49, and yeah, and the other one sold as well, but that must be in an upcoming video. Okay, let's check what else sold. Olokai, these are flip-flops. They're just a woman's size 6. These were actually a quick pickup by Mr. Pishposh at the bins. One day we were there together, and he just kind of scanned the shoe bins and spotted these sandals. And Olokai, some can do really good and some are like so-so. And I was like, well, it's a smaller size. It might take a little while. But look at the condition was like actually really good. You know, a lot of the shoes at our bins, if you dig, you can find some good stuff, but a lot of the stuff is just beat to death. So those sold for $27.99, and they sold pretty quickly, I would say in less than a week. This Patagonia hat we picked up, you know, a lot of basic Patagonia hats are not really super great. There's a few Patagonia hats that are totally out of this world, like they're really good. But then an average Patagonia hat's not great. I had picked this one up because it was corduroy, and corduroy usually is just a good fabric that people like. This next one kind of blows my mind as well. I kind of knew Filofax, but it was not. I think when I did the office supply video, we talked about Franklin Covey. I don't know that we talked about Filofax, but I see this leather, really nice leather organizer at the thrift store. And I was like, ooh, that's nice material. And it was from 2004, all the inserts in it. And so I'm looking at it, and it's got a name. Oh, where was it? It's called Hampstead. I can't remember if I got that from Google Lens or if it says that somewhere in there. But I love it when a thing says on it whether it's leather or not. And so we just sold it. We had seen some good solds in, you know, prices and things. So I went pretty high. Some of the comps I was seeing was from a while ago. And so I was like, I'm not sure where we're at right now. So I think there was a sale. We had some offers go back and forth. And I finally ended up just selling it for, I know the price shows $157, but our actual selling price was $100. And I was like, you know what? I paid like $3 for this thing at the thrift store. So, you know, I've been trying to do better. And this was even back in May. I was just kind of starting to think about that. But I'm trying to do better about moving things through. And, you know, certain things I will hold out for a really good price. And some things, depending on how cash flow is going that week, that month, you know, just if it's a good enough profit, I'm just working on taking it. Then at the other end of the spectrum, I sold this ladle by Foley for $12.99. So back to Johnny Was. Now I go back to the thrift store again like a couple days later. So I don't know where these were coming from. They were just being like pieced out, like farmed out here and there. Maybe multiple bags came in and it took them a while to go through them or something. But here's the label on this one, JW Los Angeles, Joy, Love, Light. So that's Johnny Was. And it's just got embroidery on the shoulders. And it was kind of unusual. It was like a poncho. I don't know if you can tell from that, but it's just kind of square if you lay it all out. And that one sold for the full $59.99, and that sold pretty quickly. But when I was at the thrift store, I'm looking through the women's clothes, and I think I was just looking for myself. And I saw the embroidery on the shoulder. So this one was on the top of the rack. So there's like shelves on top of the rack, and this one, like again, probably had fallen off a hanger, and somebody picked it up off the ground and put it on top of the rack. So I was finding Johnny Was at the same thrift store, like in all these different weird places. Now, I even made a separate trip one time with my son because all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, the dresses, I should have been looking at the dresses because this woman might have had some in there too. But anyway, I didn't find a dress, but I was happy with my 3 Johnny Was finds like within a week. And then listing them, they all sold like really quickly as well. Then a vintage pair of pants. I think what slowed us down on this one, these did sell for $60. They're military, they're vintage, and I think what slowed us down was just the size. They were 31 by 27. They were fairly short. I don't remember what the actual size on the, 29. So they had shrunk a little bit, not necessarily shortened. But yeah, so they eventually did find their buyer, and those sold for $60, but probably a few months. This one we got either negative or neutral feedback for. It's a good brand, Victorinox, for cutlery, like kitchen cutlery. Mr. Pishposh was letting me know because they were in a baggie. I don't know if we were getting other things in that bag as well, but he listed these separately. They didn't agree with our assessment on the condition, and so they left a bad feedback, and so I just replied and said that they were more than welcome to send them back for a refund if they wanted that. All right, better keep going. We've got this little Flatware sale just made me happy, even though it was just $20, only because I found them. Oh, and those steak knives sold for $45. I don't think I said that. So these, I found them one day, listed them the same day, and they sold like the next day. So it just was a really fast little flip. William Rogers Oneida, the pattern is called Mansfield. As you can see, I've been playing around with the background of my Flatware, mostly because I think I told you before that my photo studio had died, the light in it died, and I started using Mr. Pishposh's setup out in the garage, and I liked my gray background for my Flatware, but I didn't have that anymore, and my gray background, it was getting beat up anyway. So I have bought a new photo studio. I will be getting that set up soon, and I think I'll probably just be back down to working out of that. But I don't know, what do you guys think of the dark background? There are times where it's okay. Like, I like that kind of shot when it's up close like that. I think the detail shows really good. It's not the best lighting in his setup out there, but, you know, it does the job, and its stuff was still selling, so I guess it's okay. And then the last sale on eBay for the month of May was just a simple pair of shoes. Again, not a brand I would be like, oh, go out and get these. Boutique by Corky's, and I've had these for a while. These were from the bins, but the old bins, like the store before they moved, and so that's quite a few months ago. They were just in really good shape. I don't know. I think Mr. Pish Posh listed these. So he used T-strap, which is good, but could you also say Gladiator, do you think? Or does Gladiator have to be a little more strappy? I don't know. But they sold, so it's all good. I got thinking about it. Just keyword related. Okay, so this necktie, I had made a little short that I put on YouTube as well that talked about finding this tie in the wild and having people kind of guess, what do you think the brand is? And it surprised me. It was so bright and colorful. I knew I had to stop and see what it was, but I was very surprised to see that it was Kuji. And so, you know, they're known for the sweaters that have this like textured look, but I had never come across a necktie before, so I had to pick it up and test it out. So it ended up selling on Poshmark for $25. This is another little sale. Even though it's not high dollar, it does make me happy because it moved really fast. So I got these Chico's earrings at a local thrift. They were probably like $1 a pair. And I decided just to bundle them because they weren't worth a ton by themselves. And a lot of the bundles were actually selling pretty good. So I bundled them, $25, put them on eBay, crossed them to Posh, and they sold on Posh like the same day or next day. And I was like, sweet, let's just turn that money into more money and move on. Vintage wool hat by Meister. Here's the tag. Made in Hong Kong, sold for $19. This brand I might have talked to you about before, Rip Skirt. I have found these a few times. They're wrap skirts that you can use at the beach or after a pool, or you know, they're like a cover-up kind of thing. But I seem to do best on the longer size ones, and that one sold pretty quickly for $26. The last pair of Roosevelt's shorts that I had gotten at Goodwill that were new with tags finally sold. I took a $20 offer. All the other ones had sold, as I shared in previous videos. These were based on Shark Week, so I was happy that those moved on. This is a mug. I got it at our Little Bins store, and I kind of got it and then regretted it, but it was just, you know, it was cute, and I think I was looking for mugs for my son to list or something like that. And then I was like, why did I get this? Because it's Royal Doulton, Florinda. You know, it probably would have been worth it more if there was like 2 or 3 or 4 of them or something like that. But it's funny, this actually did sell on Poshmark because I used like cottagecore and things like that to try to move it, and that's where it did sell. $12. And then $13, not much more for this Starbucks St. Louis coffee mug. You are here. Anyway, some of those are really good and some are not so great. Here's another Cutco ladle that I sourced at the same time as the spatula, and I thought it was really funny because I made this little video, or I recorded this video. I was at Goodwill and I see this, and if I have the video, I'll try to put it up here. So I don't know if I'll get the timing on this right, but I'm gonna just show the video. But anyway, so what you can see in the video is that at the bottom is this barbecue set that's made in Japan. And we had it, we tried to sell it and we couldn't sell it. So we donated it to Goodwill. So I'm in Goodwill and I'm like, oh look, there's the thing I couldn't sell that I donated. And then right above it, I look in the bag and it's full of Cutco utensils. So it was kind of like doing this little trade, like a little trade. Get rid of my unwanted inventory, and then I found some other utensils. So we did, Mr. Pish Posh went ahead and he like split them up and listed them. And then he's like, you know what, I probably should have just bundled them and sold them in one lot, but it's okay. We ended up selling quite a few of them already, and a lot have sold on Poshmark, so very interesting. So this was one of those that was in that bag that day. $15 for that. And then a pair of cool shorts, just kind of basic ones, $20 for those. Sanita Danish clogs. So kind of in the same realm as Dansko. I was reading that Sanita actually started off making Dansko clogs, and then they, I don't know, split off or whatever happened. The Sanita is usually considered a little bit more affordable according to AI, and their sizing just works a little different than Dansko. But so these sold for $40. They kind of had a holographic iridescent type design on them. $50 for this sheet set, and it was the flat, the fitted, and I don't know if there was a pillowcase or something in there, but they, you know, it was very 80s, early 90s style, cottagecore again. It's called Calico Hearts and by Canon, and so when I saw it was a king size, that's usually, you know, a better selling point, and that sold for $50. Last thing on Posh was this English Laundry. Again, a brand I'm not recommending. These were new with tags. I think they were a Mr. Pish Posh pickup. One of the thrifting trips that we did, I think out of town, he came across these. But they sold for $22. Well, let's pop over to the Etsy shops that were open at that time. Metal and Tweed was open. We sold, again, another one of our little wood grain clocks for $24.99. I thought he had one with a time on it. He usually has that as the main one, but maybe just the colors weren't working out good. Anyway, $24.99 for that. I think that was it on that site. Then on the Pish Posh Kitchen, we have these Stanley Roberts salad forks sold for $20. There was 4 of them. Oh, and I love vintage flatware like these Stanley Roberts autumn leaves. Like, they put the name of the pattern and everything on the back of the fork. Like, you can't get any better than that. And then this cheese slicer, this was a weird thing. It went to Canada, but it didn't like make it through customs, and it came back. And so I messaged the person and said, hey, I got this cheese slicer back. You know, I don't know. It's not telling me why it didn't make it through customs. And then I never heard from them. And I said, you know, I could list it again. We could try again. And I never heard from them. So I just refunded them and relisted it and sold it to somebody else. And then kind of a fun little accordion style expandable mug rack. These sold really well a few years back. But I had this in my little stash of vintage goodies. I decided to attack it one day. I mostly had picked it up because it was painted orange and it had this detail of like ivy leaves in gold painted on it as well. So I just thought that was super cute and somebody would want that. It sold for $29. Over on the pattern shop, we had a lot of bread and butter, even though this first one was pretty good. $21 for this Y2K evening length dress by Simplicity. Butterick, a costume, making history for $9. And this new look, very, very 80s, 90s, puffy sleeve kind of dress, sold for $15. Those 3 all went to the same buyer. And then this craft pattern by McCall's with these rabbits, the Great Bunny cover-up. There's one that covers a vacuum, and one that's a draft blocker. I don't know, things like that. A sewing machine cover, $13 for that. Bit of interestingness. McCall's Y2K style skirt sold for $11. Another kind of basic McCall's, just blouses, jacket blouse type things, $11 for that. A men's shirt for $15. Kind of like that style Hawaiian shirt, but some other styles mixed in as well. This McCall's vintage 1970s was for juniors, I think, sizes 9 and 10. That sold for $13. It was Teen Action Line. Simplicity, again, just a cardigan and some shorts, sold for $11. Another Vogue accessories pattern with evening bags also sold for $11. And a newer McCall's with skirts sold for $13. I think it was early 2000s, not necessarily, like, I mean mid 2000s, 2010s. I don't even know how to describe half these things. Simplicity, this kid's cheerleader costume sold for $9. Quick Sew, I love the cover on that one. It was $11 for that one as well, just a pullover, kind of like V-neck. And Coco Bial, another Vogue pattern, sold for $13. So like I said, that particular end of May, there was just a lot of kind of bread and butter patterns going out the door. Couple sales on Ruby Lane during that time. This little pin or brooch sold for $9. It was a guy bowling, and it should be part of a set. There should be a woman bowling as well, and that the pair would have sold better. This was an old pin, Victorian era pin with a little bit of enamel. It holds a photo. I wish the photo had been in better shape, but that still sold for $17. $27 for this piece of ephemera. I got it for $1 at a yard sale last summer, so it did take a little while, but it's a menu for the dining car of a Union Pacific Railroad rail car from 1935. I don't know, I just love old papers and ephemera, so you can kind of see. So it gave like all the menu and everything like that. It had the date written on it by the person who, it was probably like their little souvenir, so they wrote the date and things like that, and they just kind of hung on to it. Pretty cool. And then the back of it, let me see if that's the next picture, but the back of it had a really pretty picture about the plant that the train was named after. The little no-name, unbranded, little heart, painted heart, like stamped brass earrings for $9. And the last one was this brooch by Emmons. Emmons was a company, a sister company to Sarah Coventry, and it sold for $20, but I had picked it up because of its really cool atomic and starburst kind of style to it. That sold for $20. Okay, that was it. I don't know how long this video ended up being. It's probably a pretty long one. So thanks if you're still here and you stuck with me. Thanks for sticking around, and I will talk to you guys soon.